Good morning, Jackie. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We have had a good week. Just sort of getting back into the sync of the year. It takes a little bit longer
Mm,
to do that and get from school holidays into a routine. It's taken
yeah.
me quite a while to get into that, but I'm nearly there. So all good. What about you?
Yeah, same. It's probably taken me my whole life to actually get in a routine. I'm very much like go with the flow, but then in hindsight, it's like, this could be a little bit more structured and organized and not stressful. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like
getting back in the flow of things as well. So it's calmed down a lot. We've finalized a lot of our insurance claims from the storms and that kind of stuff. But yeah, a bit of pre-Christmas arrears as well, which we were just talking about.
do we have a
Um,
question this week?
Yes. So, all right, let's have a look. So this question is actually from a investor that's got a property in Logan. So, hi, Jackie and Ash. Just reaching out. I wanted to get your thoughts on a situation. The tenants are currently uh, in arrears at 42 days in my property, and they have not made any payments since December. The property manager's lodged to court, and it's still 4 weeks away from the QCAT date. What recommendations do you have in handling this? Is this worth doing landlord insurance claim? Would love to get your thoughts.
Well, first of all, each state is different with their processes. So I guess we just disclaim that first.
Yes.
So it is a long process,
Mm.
breaches, terminations, applying to court, and getting a court eviction. And even then, it's up to, in WA, it's up to the magistrate's decision with what they want to give the tenant, whether it's 7 days immediate, 21 days, you're sort of at their mercy of what they're going to do. And then in addition, if a tenant still doesn't vacate despite having that court order, then you've got to book in WA a bailiff and go down that road. So for me, I think a real big part of rent arrears is keeping communication going with tenants and keeping keeping everything, like keeping in touch with them and keeping it, if you can, as nice as possible, because
Mm.
it's in your owner's best interest, or it's in my owner's best interest, if I can try and negotiate this and settle this without the lengthy court delay, and maybe get the tenant to vacate on their own accord into something maybe that's more affordable or something like that. So to give you like an example, I mean, I've got lots of examples these last couple of months because Christmas has really thrown our arrears out of whack in a certain area of Perth at the moment. But to give you some examples of really good communication, we had a tenant who was in arrears, and we kept up that good communication with them, and they said, we're going to vacate the property. Now, the tenant's not paying rent anyway, even though there was a lease
Yeah.
on this property. The tenant's not paying rent, so it's in the owner's best interest just to get possession of this property back. The tenant was happy to vacate. He tidied up the house. He still had arrears,
Yeah.
but he was able to hand us back the keys. He cleaned up the property as much as he could. He was happy to sign over the bond, and it was dealt with in a very amicable way as well, which is definitely a good story. And that purely comes down to a property, or to our property managers having good communication,
Mm.
and being, just being good humans to someone
Yeah.
who is really suffering financially. But I want to share a story about one we just had yesterday, and this was very, very frustrating because in WA we've got a rent relief grant where tenants can get their arrears paid off. We got onto the front foot. We sent this all through to the ones that we saw struggling in December. We still have to issue breaches, terminations, apply to court. So we did all that, getting to the pointy end of this, and I said, I haven't heard from the rent relief grant people, follow up. She told me that it was just luck. And I was like, it's not luck. I'm getting money. Like, it's really easy to get it. Like, government's paying, just get the money.
Yeah.
She said, I got a personal number for the charity, and I called her, and I said, listen, here's the number. This lady, she's working today and tomorrow. Call her. She do it all over the phone. So, like, you can imagine all the work the property manager's doing in the background. Still
Mm.
Still nothing. She gave us nothing from that. Went to court. Now the court granted her, the court granted our owner 7 days. Basically said, nah, and this is a single mum with 3 children that the courts went, nah, enough. 7 days, she needs to give you those keys back. So very, very quick process, but which I was very impressed with. Court at the moment is taking about 2 weeks to book in, so a 2-week time delay, but the courts are giving 7 days. But ultimately, still, you are going to be, as a landlord, probably 40 to 50 days in arrears by that point. So as a landlord, you've always got to be prepared for this. Even like some of these tenants have been good tenants for 12 months and then fall unfinancial times. So we're not talking about crap tenants going into a property at the start. There are good tenants that have turned where the tenancies have turned out this way. So the best that you can do is really have your property manager working with the tenant as much as possible. A lot of it goes behind the scenes. You've got the formality paperwork, but then let us just try and negotiate, be kind. I know that you don't be kind in these situations, but I'm playing the game. I'm trying to get this money for you, or getting possession of the property back with its least cost and as quick as possible. So each situation you've got to address on their own merit. So the only times that I have big warning signs is, number one, if there is any abuse by a tenant. But I actually have never really had a situation where the tenant's been abusive. It's always been a good relationship, but that would be a warning sign that, we're going to have a bit of problem with this one, because there's no respect either way for each person. So that's a red flag. And the second red flag would be if I literally cannot get hold of the tenant, then I'd be like, have they gone? Are they there? I don't have anything
we actually have a process, and I actually went through a beautiful run of 8 years with no court over here for myself as a property manager, which was magical. But that's because of exactly what you said. 99% of the time we were able to just talk with the tenant, get them out. That's not to say we didn't lodge to court. We just didn't actually have to go, because we were able to get them out without escalating it, or they were able to rectify the arrears. So I can't remember what was I don't know, lost my point on.
So, I mean, I guess for an investor, like if you've got a tenant in arrears, the question that I would email the property manager, just so that you've got it in writing so you understand, and just say, can you please explain this process to me, so that you know at what point you need to sort of have some involvement. So get your property manager just to say, listen, this is what we've issued. When this expires on this date, our next step is to issue this termination. If the rent still is not paid at this date, then we're going to be applying to court, and just have that process. Take the emotion out of it. Like as an owner, you can take the emotion out of it. As a property manager, we'll balance it all. Just understand what the next steps are at every time, so that you can potentially, when that date arrives, if you haven't heard from your property manager, you can just do a follow-up and just double check how it's going. Have they heard from the tenant? Have they spoken? And authorize the next step of the process as well. I would say that sometimes I get landlords that are a little bit too relaxed and go, and trust the word of a tenant. So for example, they might say, but they said that they're going to pay next week, and I want to give them the opportunity. Be aware that there are time constraints on some of the paperworks that we issue. So while it's fine to wait till then, and it's fine to maybe drag out a couple of days here and there, be a little bit lenient. However, I would always do the formal paperwork. Stretch it out a little bit if you want, but do not stop doing the paperwork.
Yes, you have to.
You have to.
You absolutely have to. And it's still, it makes the tenants accountable for following through with what they've said. If they've said they're going to pay it by a certain date, you still have to. We have 2 weeks after a notice to leave expires to lodge to court. I would say with this particular situation, it'll probably definitely be worth doing a landlord insurance claim for the loss of rent, most of which have a $0 excess. So technically they'll pay from the first day of arrears up until the date before the new tenant moves in. So just doing a claim on that, and then hopefully the bond is enough to mitigate any damages or cleaning or water usage, and you can do it that way. So really, when you think about it that way, if you've got that specialized landlord insurance in place, as long as you can float that for 2 or 3 months, because unfortunately the QCAP process over in Queensland, like it's from lodging paperwork, you get a date usually a week or two after, but unfortunately that date is often like 3 to 6 weeks away. So like the tenant's got a minimum, like if you do the forms on the absolute soonest available period, you can lodge to court when they're about 22, 23 days. But you add on 2 weeks for the lodgement and then another 6 weeks, they could be potentially 60, 70, 80 days by the time you go to court. And then that's not to say the adjudicator says, okay, they have 2 more weeks to move out, which often they will. So you have to have that insurance in place, especially you just have to.
Can I tell you a funny story to finish off about a tenant? He's currently 7 weeks in arrears, and he had the nerve to email to say, can you ask the owner if I can get a dog? And I was like, I'm not going to the owner with any favors for you until you paid your rent. Like, why would you even do that?
Yeah, it's so funny. I've even had tenants who are reporting like a heap of non-urgent maintenance and they're like 35 days. It's like, hey, you actually have to pay the rent so that we can pay the tradespeople to do things as well. So it's just all a long-term relationship and a little bit of give and take throughout it all.
Yeah, exactly. Good question. If anyone else has any questions that they would like answered or like some advice on, shoot them through to Jackie or myself so we can address them next week for you. I'll see you next week, Jackie.
See ya. Bye.